The walk-forward optimizer automates the complex and multi-step task of running statistical walk-forward testing. Typically, a walk-forward test divides the data into two segments, the in-sample data and the out-of-sample data. The strategy inputs are optimized using the in-sample data and then are applied to the out-of-sample data to measure performance. The walk-forward optimizer takes this concept to the next level by running walk-forward tests on multiple data segments. It performs statistical calculations that measure the likelihood that the optimized strategy inputs will provide similar performance results when trading in a live environment. During a walk-forward analysis, the walk-forward optimizer divides the entire dataset in a chart in separate segments. Each segment of data is further divided in two parts, an in-sample part and an out-of-sample part. Let's demonstrate this concept using this chart. The data for this symbol is divided in segments based on the number of walk-forward runs set for the optimization. This number is 10 by default. The first segment is then divided in two parts, the in-sample data, which by default is 80% of the segment, and the out-of-sample data, which would be the remaining 20%. The walk-forward optimizer will optimize the strategy inputs in the in-sample data. Once optimal strategy inputs are found, these are tested in the out-of-sample data and the performance results are saved. Since the out-of-sample part is not seen by the strategy when optimizing, the results simulate real-life trading. The walk-forward process moves the data window or data boundaries forward, selecting a new data segment with new in-sample and out-of-sample parts. The strategy inputs are optimized again using the new in-sample data. Once optimal strategy inputs are found, these are tested in the new out-of-sample part and the performance results are saved. This process of selecting in-sample data, optimizing strategy inputs, testing on out-of-sample data, and moving forward is repeated until all the walk-forward runs are complete. Then, all the saved out-of-sample performance results are compiled into a report that measures the robustness of specific strategy inputs and the likelihood that they will generate similar results when trading in real market conditions. To use the walk-forward optimizer, we need to set up a strategy for optimization. In this chart analysis window, we have applied a custom strategy. Click Format from the menu bar and select Strategy. Click the Format button on the right and let's optimize multiple inputs in order to generate sufficient testing scenarios. For an effective walk-forward analysis, an optimization of over 1,000 unique input combination tests is recommended. Before clicking Optimize to start the optimization process, click the drop-down for Type under the Optimization Details section and select Walk Forward. Notice a Walk Forward Test name field appears on the right. Enter a name of at least 6 characters in length. This file will store all the performance results during the optimization. Then click the Optimize button. Once the optimization is complete, we launch the Walk Forward Optimizer to perform the Walk Forward testing. To launch the Walk Forward Optimizer, click the Walk Forward Optimizer button in the shortcut bar. To load the results of our strategy optimization, click the File menu and select Open. Click the drop-down under Select a Walk Forward Test and select the file created. Notice that the name of the file is modified to include the symbol and the data interval used in the chart analysis window. Click the Open button. The optimization results are loaded in the background, and a walk-forward method must be selected to run the analysis. There are two methods, a single walk-forward analysis and a cluster walk-forward analysis. In a single walk-forward analysis, The number of walk-forward runs and the percentage of out-of-sample data remain constant. By default, the walk-forward optimizer uses 10 walk-forward runs and a 20% of out-of-sample data. To change these settings, click on Setup on the menu bar and select Optimization Settings. Use the directional arrows to increase or decrease the walk-forward runs or the percentage of out-of-sample data. In a cluster walk-forward analysis, a range of walk-forward runs and a range of out-of-sample percentages are set. This way, it measures the stability of the optimized input parameters across different scenarios. Notice the bottom section in this dialog labeled Cluster Analysis Matrix of Multiple Walk-Forward Analysis. Instead of using fixed values for the out-of-sample percentage and walk-forward runs, we can test a range of values at a specified increment. Therefore, rather than just using a fixed 20% of out-of-sample data part, we'll test the performance using 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, and 30% of out-of-sample data parts. Likewise, instead of dividing the data into only 10 walk-forward runs, we'll test 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 different walk-forward runs. This complex, multi-step task is automated using the cluster walk-forward analysis. While a single walk-forward analysis may provide a preliminary indication of whether a strategy is robust, the cluster analysis is generally a more comprehensive method of testing the validity of a trading strategy. On a side note, you may specify the amount of in-sample and out-of-sample data by using a number of bars instead of a percentage. To do so, click the checkbox next to Prescribe Number of Walk-Forward Runs to remove the checkmark. Notice how the fields change to in-sample bars and out-of-sample bars. Using this method, the walk-forward optimizer will determine how many walk-forward runs are necessary to complete the analysis. By default, the walk-forward optimizer uses a rolling walk-forward analysis. Using this method, the data boundaries are moved forward based on the number of runs. This makes the starting date and time of each in-sample and out-of-sample part different. In an anchored walk-forward analysis, the starting date and time for the in-sample part is always the same, hence the name anchored. Using an anchored walk-forward analysis, only the ending date and time for the data segment is moved forward. The in-sample and out-of-sample data parts grow proportionally as the data segment gets larger. To run an anchored walk-forward analysis, put a check in the checkbox next to Anchored in the Setup Optimization Settings dialog. To run a walk-forward cluster analysis, click Walk-Forward Analysis from the menu bar and select Start Cluster Analysis from the drop-down menu. In the Cluster Analysis tab, a grid is displayed showing number of runs in the x-axis and percentages of out-of-sample data in the y-axis. Each walk-forward scenario uses a different number of runs and a different percentage of out-of-sample data. As the cluster analysis completes each one of these different runs and percentage combinations, the total equity is displayed inside the corresponding cell. To pause the optimizer, click the button with the coffee cup on the toolbar. To cancel the walk-forward analysis, click the button with the exclamation mark. Keep in mind that the pause or cancel may take a few seconds to take effect, allowing certain walk-forward calculations to complete. Once the cluster analysis is complete, the walk-forward optimizer will automatically highlight the best cluster of walk-forward runs in green. A cluster is formed by first selecting an XY coordinate, in this case, a specific combination of walk-forward runs and a percentage of out-of-sample data, and then highlighting the 8 cells immediately surrounding that coordinate. The cluster highlighted represents the walk-forward runs with the highest average profit and loss and the highest average walk-forward pass-fail rate. A walk-forward analysis will pass or fail based on 5 performance criteria. To see if a particular walk-forward run has passed or failed, click the drop-down next to Display and select Walk-Forward Overall Result. The overall strategy is considered to have passed if the majority of the highest average performance scenarios passed the criteria test. The criteria used to pass or fail a particular walk-forward run can be modified by clicking Setup and selecting Test Criteria Settings from the drop-down menu. There are 5 criteria that you can select and modify. The first criterion is overall profitability. If the total profit generated by the strategy is less than 0, the walk-forward optimizer will mark this run as a failure. The second criterion is walk-forward robustness. This criterion will look at the results of the walk-forward efficiency. Let's cancel out of this dialog momentarily, and let's bring up the walk-forward efficiency report to illustrate this concept. In the Cluster Analysis tab, click the drop-down next to Display and select Walk-Forward Efficiency from the drop-down menu. Walk-forward efficiency is the ratio of out-of-sample performance to in-sample performance. In other words, if the out-of-sample performance is the same as the in-sample performance, then the efficiency would be 100%. If the out-of-sample performance is greater than the in-sample performance, the value would be greater than 100%. If the out-of-sample performance is lower than the in-sample performance, then the value would be lower than 100%. If the walk-forward efficiency is lower than 50%, then the walk-forward optimizer will mark this run as a failure. Let's go to the Test Criteria Settings again. Click on the Setup menu and select Test Criteria Settings from the drop-down menu. The third criterion is consistency of profits. A strategy that is profitable, but based only on a small portion of the walk-forward tests, would fail this criterion. For example, if a walk-forward analysis has 10 runs, at least 5 of the individual runs need to be profitable in order to pass. The fourth criterion is distribution of profits. Here, we're checking to make sure that no one single run contributed more than a certain percentage of the total net profit. The fifth and last criterion is maximum drawdown. If any single run creates a drawdown greater than 40% of the initial capital, the walk-forward optimizer would mark this test as a failure. Initial capital is set to $100,000 by default, but may be modified by using the initial capital field at the top right of this dialog. Other options from where to measure drawdown are cumulative equity at beginning of run and cumulative equity at start of drawdown. To view the maximum drawdown for each walk-forward test, let's cancel out of this dialog. Click the drop-down next to Display and select Maximum Drawdown Percentage. Here, the specific drawdown percentage is displayed for each test, and the lowest average cluster is highlighted in red. In addition to the Cluster Analysis tab, you may click on other tabs of the Walk-Forward Optimizer to access data from specific walk-forward scenarios. By clicking on a cell in the Cluster Analysis table, the data from this specific walk-forward analysis is loaded and displayed in the other performance tabs for further analysis and review. For example, if I want to see the data for the test with 10 walk-forward runs and a 20% out-of-sample data, I can click this cell, and the data is automatically loaded in the other tabs. You may also click the specific walk-forward analysis by clicking the drop-down on top. The first tab is the optimization summary of the in-sample data. Here, you see the best performing input set or input combination when tested against in-sample data. You also see the range of data utilized for the test and the performance results for each run. The best performing input sets selected from the in-sample optimization are then walked forward. The Walk Forward Summary tab shows how these optimized inputs perform when applied to the out-of-sample data. The Test Results tab displays the passing or failing grade of each one of these test criteria applied to this specific walk-forward analysis. It also includes a comment of why a specific test criterion was passed or failed. If the strategy fails any of the individual tests, the strategy is failed overall and is deemed not suitable for real-time implementation or trading. In the Graphs tab, you may view an equity curve for this walk-forward analysis. Clicking the arrow buttons allow you to scroll left and right within the graph. Use the zoom in and zoom out buttons in the toolbar to adjust the amount of data in the graph. You may also click the checkbox next to Show OOS Intervals to display out-of-sample vertical line breaks in the graph. In the PL History tab, you can see profit and loss displayed in a table format trade by trade. In the Performance Summary tab, you have access to other performance measures for this particular walk-forward analysis. The drop-down on the right allows you to filter the results by long trades or short trades, and the boxes on the left allow you to adjust the range for the historical period tested. The Walk-Forward Optimizer also offers two unique analysis tools that can help you refine your strategy: sensitivity analysis and distribution analysis. The Sensitivity Analysis tab lets you study how an individual optimized parameter impacts the performance of the strategy. By default, a graph for one input will be displayed. The x-axis displays the different input values, and the y-axis plots the net profit that these input values generated the strategy. To select another input, click the drop-down next to Display Sensitivity for. When a different input is selected, the graph will automatically update. To graph two inputs simultaneously, click the drop-down where the word Only appears and select AND. Another drop-down appears, allowing you to select a second input and create a three-dimensional graph. Different input combinations tested are displayed in the table above and are ranked in ascending order based on test number. You may change the rank order by clicking the drop-downs and selecting a different option. Click the Apply Ranking button to apply the new ranking option. The Distribution Analysis tab displays a graph of how certain performance measures are distributed across multiple time horizons. The three drop-down menus on top allow you to select the performance measure to graph, the time frame to use, and the trades to include. Keep in mind that the Sensitivity and Distribution Analysis tabs are only available if the initial optimization run in TradeStation was exhaustive. A sensitivity and distribution analysis cannot be calculated when the raw data resulted from a genetic optimization. In conclusion, the Walk-Forward Optimizer offers strategy traders the ability to empirically stress test and forward test their trading strategy for stability and robustness. Thank you for completing this tutorial. Remember that the TradeStation Platform Help is a resource available to you from the TradeStation Help menu should you have any questions about using the platform.